Hey everybody, so I'm back in the St. Edward's Founders Garden, and I'm just going to be sharing a few thoughts about how people get away with murder. Not that I'm not that I'm recommending this, but these are just some thoughts. So last week I shared family details because people have been trying to impersonate me, including family. And one of those details I shared was some information about my Uncle Vernon, who he had died in Utah. And I said he died in 1993. I don't think that's actually true. I was thinking about that. And I remember, I'm just turning up the volume on this. Wait, no, I'm not. I remember when he died. I don't remember the exact year. I think I might know, but anyway, I remember it being not too much longer after my grandpa died. My uh, grandpa Silly, and I remember his kids being really young. And so 93 was when I graduated from college. It was probably more like a decade before that. But there are all these fake obituaries, fake like listing for grave sites. And when I was looking on, I can't remember if this is ancestry.com or another one, there were all these social security index records, and they had two different years, 92 and 93. And I'm thinking, okay, so when somebody died, it's 1 year, not a couple different years. It's like when people apologists uh argue for the dating of Jesus's death, and they always fudge it, like 30 AD and 33 AD. The reason it's 30 AD, but the reason they do that is because they're stuck on him dying on a Friday, died on a Wednesday, just while we're shaking things up. But anyway, um this is what I think, because looking at all the records on ancestry.com, also on the LDS Church database, uh, his daughter and granddaughter, Diane Nelson Salee and uh, Dana McMillan, have been faking a lot of data. And so my thought is there were one of the records was for some benefits, applications for benefits. I didn't see what it was. But I'm thinking maybe they didn't, I don't know how they would have done this, but maybe they didn't report his death. Maybe he was receiving benefits and they didn't report his death so they could continue receiving benefits. And I think that actually happens quite a bit, probably more than we think. And I think that's why, there was a change that I'm not sure which benefits, but if you change uh, your bank account, you have to go in person to the Social Security office. I think that's why. I think that there's a crap ton of fraud going on, and that's one of the ways they counteract it is by having the person go in person to change the account. Because I'm sure there's a lot of situations like that. Like my Uncle Tim Silly. He's on disability. He's not disabled. Okay, he's not disabled. Uh, I had actually met a woman here at Smock, and she said that her mother, actually every single disability case that came to her got approved. So I think there's like a whole industry of approving fake disability claims, and I think that I know is actually one of the payoffs for some of these people that are that have been creeping through all my stuff, trying to impersonate me, all this. They're trying to get a disability claim approved for them, and that's going to be their payoff. Because of course, when somebody steals, they're stealing something that's not theirs, and they can't pay. They don't want to put their own money out to do that either, so they're going to have taxpayers pay for that fraud, right? So anyway, here's the thing. I mean, everybody that's involved in this is like completely they're just crazy idiots, because they think that they're so central to the plot that they're screwing over everybody else, but they're so central, and they're so tight. They're so tight with who they're colluding with that the person is going to do right by them. You're an idiot. You're a complete idiot. This is what's going to happen. They're getting this disability claim, right? And then they're going to get rid of you, but they're still going to be collecting your disability. And it's particularly easy for people here because they're disconnected. They're gone. Who's gonna know where they are? And they're going to continue to collect your benefits. My parents have been trying to get me. I mean, not only were they trying to steal an inheritance, but they're also trying to get me to file for disability for literally for years, pushing me to do this. When I came back, they were on me all the time. I said, I'm not disabled. That's fraud. So finally they backed off, but I think they were trying to start it because, again, I was getting phone calls. I was getting phone calls like, oh, we can help you with your disability case. I never filed for that. Okay. But I'm sure that their plan was, okay, we're going to steal the inheritance. We're going to get rid of her. We're also going to be collecting disability on her and keep her, it's like, how there's so many cases. How is the government going to know? Right. Unless if they start investigating it. And the other thing too is like, if people have to know that somebody has actually, that you have to have a body, right, to actually be able to prove a murder. If you don't have a body, that's kind of difficult. Like if somebody's just disappeared, how do you know? How would you even know that they're gone? Like, and let's just say you have somebody that supposedly knows you that's having conversations with you, or that there's faked text messages to other people, or even faked phone calls. How would you know? Because that happens. Voice clones, fake text messages, even people in person. This literally happened a couple weeks ago. I went into the Human Being on River Road and walked in. There was this woman that used to be at Saga. Her name is Summer. I don't know her last name. But anyway, so I said, oh, hey. And she was one of the people I used to talk to. So I used to actually talk to people. And then I realized that, that lame ass losers were, probably paying people off to get information from me. And then I'm like, whatever. You're on the side of evil. I'm not talking to you. Anyway, so, but she was one of the people I talked to. So I sat down, I was talking to her, and there were a couple things that she said when I was sitting there with her that I was like, what? It didn't really make sense. She was sitting with her back to the window, and so there was light coming through. But then afterwards, and this is usually like how I think anyway, I have to kind of think through it. I was like, that was not her. Number one, the mannerisms were pretty similar, but there were some things that were off about it. She has a pretty distinct way of talking, but there were a few things off. There were some things that she said were off. Her body type was different. She wasn't the person that was impersonating her, looked a lot heavier. And actually, her body type looked like a former friend, Joy Henson from Houston. That's what the body type looked like. And she also said there was one really weird thing that she said, but the other thing that was like the real tell is she was talking about the Wheatland Ferry. Now, I didn't even know there was a Wheatland Ferry. I knew there was in Canby, but she's talking about it. And I was like, she said something about, oh, I just remember being, on the upper deck and like looking down. I'm like, what? Okay. This is the thing. This is people. I'm going to give you a an idea for a great business model, because I know how people like to steal my ideas and things I produce. So I'm just going to give you this. What is needed are like these clean rooms, or sometimes maybe even a mobile clean room, where video or radio transmissions can't come through. Because what has been going on, and I know this sounds crazy, it sounds like a spy movie, but this has literally been happening, is that people they're having some sort of earpiece or something where they're being fed information. And whoever was feeding that woman named Summer, like the person that I knew who was impersonating her, who's ever feeding her information was obviously from New England or something, where they have 2 double-decker ferries. They do not have that in Oregon. Okay, the Wheatland Ferry, Canby Ferry, I don't know where the other ferries are, but they're not 2 stories. Okay, so it has to be somebody on the East Coast that they have ferries like that there. We don't hear. That is an obvious tell. But anyway, I just looked. You can get voice modulators for $17.95 on the internet. Cisco just came out with a voice modulator for undercover missions. Okay, so if people are doing it in the government, guess what? There's criminals doing it here. I mean, any like super secret stuff that our government does, it's not secret. Okay, it's not secret. There's nothing secret. Everything that they do is, we have private contractors who themselves are often very unscrupulous, and criminals use the exact same thing. The spy movies where they wear masks, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, you just have to be able to, and if they're modulating the voice, and depending on how good the person running them is, because they're basically live action sock puppets. That's what they are. So anyway, so there's all this fakeness that you have to be on guard against. And the thing is, it's not, the advantage is the people don't know that it's happening. That's the thing. So if you know that it's happening, then it's easier to detect it. But if you don't even know it's a thing, then it's harder to determine it and to get on guard. And I was talking about like those clean rooms where where radio transmissions can't come in. So there's been somebody here at Samaka that literally I can tell that they're being fed words by an AI model supposedly built on me, but one that has gone into collapse. She sounded like a complete idiot. I mean, I was like, this is what an AI model collapse looks like. Completely obvious. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But also, this isn't just for, for me being hounded by a bunch of vultures and losers. This is for anybody that has something of value in business. Like, you're hiring for a job. How do you know that person actually has the skills that you're looking for, and that they're not being fed information of, it's basically cheating. It's like copying off somebody's work. How do you know that that's not happening? There's all these stories about like North Koreans, getting jobs that come from companies that thought they were hiring Americans. It goes on all the time. It's not only like companies, so people other places. It's people here. And anything like talent contests, things like that. Uh, I think I mentioned before that this has happened 3 times when I've been at Smaka in that chapel. There's one time somebody had a voice modulator. They like Milli Vanilli, but they can do it live action, right? So there was somebody that was singing, and I've heard her sing before. I know that's not her voice, and so that is how I knew. It's just like so weird. Like, why are you sending these idiots in here to me? Like, what do you think you're going to be getting out of it? I don't know. But anyway, there's somebody like singing. That was one of them. Another one that came in later was playing the piano. It's like, it sounds, you can hear the reverb in it. That's not how, like, just straight up playing the piano sounds. It's just, and then this is a classic one. Since we're naming names, you come into and come into the conspiracy against me. I don't care. Gloves are off at this point. So this is on May 2nd. And I looked this up. So the mayor of Salem is Kathy Hoy. And it was kind of this weird thing when she was elected, because she was running against the incumbent, whose last name was also Hoy, and she was from the same area. And so it was just like, I'm sure she won, but I'm sure it was, she benefited from a lot of confusion based on, the incumbent having the same last name. So anyway, she's the singing mayor. She comes in to perform. This is like this last minute thing. Oh, is we having a really special performance by Mayor Kathy Hoy? So go in there, and the director from UGM is there, and the director of Samaka is there, and sitting in there. And I'm just like, whatever. There had been a lot of other things going on, so I am like literally like on guard. It's been constant. She goes in. She comes in. As she's walking by, she's playing the guitar, and I could hear it sounded electronic. It sounded like an electronic guitar. And I have my phone, my Google Pixel phone that's hacked. I do a screenshot of it, and I put this note on there. It sounds electronic. And then I'm making notes on these screenshots as I'm listening to it. So it sounded electronic. Her voice, you could tell the reverb in her voice. And when I did that, when I put that in a note on my phone, same people hacking my phone are running her. When I did that, they amped up the volume on the guitar. And it's like, you guys are a bunch of dummies. It's like, supposedly she's just playing the guitar as she's singing. You can't just, it's not like it's a concert where you can just amp up the volume. I mean, it's like, hey, let's just make it completely and totally obvious that this is all being faked, right? And then the chords change, her fingers don't. The whole thing, it was just obvious. It was all faked. It's like a total Milli Vanilli thing, totally faked. So anyway, that's just my advice to you. Number one, I think there's a lot of fraud going on from benefits, and I think that a lot of people. This is the thing. I know people have been. I think they've been promised they're going to get their disability approved, and that's going to be their payoff with their participation in this conspiracy. Guess what? They're going to get rid of you, and they're going to take your benefits. That's how it works. Dean Koontz is really the cultural apologist for the time, because this is such an evil, dark, wicked time. You can't even hardly find an honest person. But he depicts evil so well, and he is a cultural apologist because he tells stories where even in the darkest situations that truth wins. Evil does not win. And that's why his books are Christian books, because they tell a Christian story that good and truth, which is God, right, will always win at the end, and that evil does not pay. And all y'all who are participating in this circus of clowns, let me just tell you, the book you should be reading. This is the most evangelical book I have ever read of Gene Koontz. And granted, I haven't read a ton of them, but this is like the most clearly Christian book of his that I have read. It's called The Face. And it doesn't even mess around. It's like the one little mastermind. As soon as he's done with his tool, he kills them. They're gone. And those are the kind of people you're dealing with. So if you think you're going to walk away with a benefit out of this, you got another thing coming. You're delusional. None of you, not a single one, not even Drew, is that important to this plot. Not a single one. And when your usefulness is gone, or when you become too much of a liability, you're going to be gone. I know how this ends. I've been saying this for over a year. Over a year now. This is why I don't care. You've had plenty of time to get your act together, to find a way out of the mess. You've had plenty of time and you didn't do it. So at this point, whatever. I don't care. I'm just going to name names. Like I said, I know where this ends. I don't know the in-betweens, but I know God works through people, and there will be some people who aren't sellouts and cowards that are going to help bring me to the path where God said it's going to end. So anyway, watch out for fakeness, because it will out in the end. Anyway, have a great weekend.